go round and introduce ourselves. In fact, I think we'll start by introducing ourselves. It's probably the best thing. So we'll do a little go round. Everyone say a couple of minutes what your interest is in, intellectual peacemaking, spirituality, science, whatever your perspective is, okay? So I'll start. Okay, I'm Dr. Thomas Daffern. I started all this work at the University of London. I was asked to create an Institute of Peace Studies. I did it. And that's the International Institute of Peace Studies and Global Philosophy. So it's still going. We don't have a base technically at the University of London, but I discovered universities love cash. So if anyone's got £3 million spare, we can always have a building in Bloomsbury. It's not a problem. But I'm one of those academics that I believe that knowledge and the pursuit of knowledge is the primary job of the academic. And so I've made it my life's work since then to work for peace. And I've had various, international, let's say, studies and research. So I'm primarily a historian of ideas and a philosopher, but a specialist in interfaith dispute resolution. And I'll be speaking about all this a bit later. Right, so let's go round. Welcome to everyone. Gevork, could you just say a few words about yourself, because not everyone's met you before. And Gevork is the coordinator of the World Intellectual Forum in Armenia, which is at the epicenter of a problem area now. So Gevork, go for it.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Gevork Manoukian. I live in Armenia. I am a lawyer, and I'm dealing with human rights education and human rights protection during the last 25, 30 years. I have founded an NGO, Armenian Constitutional Right Protective Center. And also we publish, for the sake of justice, scientific review. So
okay, well,
my main work is human rights education, human rights and peace education.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Gevork. You're going to be speaking very shortly, so we'll keep these introductions fairly short, but later we'll all have a chance to speak more, okay? And you're going to be on first because it's your area that is experiencing this terrible conflict. Okay, Dr. Siddhartha, K. Siddhartha, would you like to introduce yourself? Because you're involved with this Transbrahm that helped initiate this whole series.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Namaste to all of you. Myself, K. Siddhartha, Kshir Sagar Siddhartha, and I'm an earth scientist by my training. I also happen to be from a creative branch as well, that is fashion designing. I have been associated with advising governments on their environmental concerns as well as on several earth sciences issues, including the establishment of a city as well. We have been associated with creating a think tank that will go on to help the government, that will go on to bring about a policy intervention, and that will also go on to deal with perception and knowledge management of the people. Now that goes on to involve in simple words, that is molding the people's psyche to understand what is good for a world that is going to be experiential, that is going to be a gig economy, and that is going to be sustainable, with a lot of peace and at the same time prosperity around. That is what exactly that we go on to aim at Transbrahm. It is the literal meaning is Brahm is Gyan, that is knowledge. Trans, that means it doesn't going to be having any boundary. It transcends all the boundaries. That is it. Namaste.
Namaste. Well said. Thank you very much. Una, you're joining us from Ireland. Just introduce yourself. Welcome. You'll have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
very good.
Welcome.
Hello, everybody. It's a great honor for me to be with so many eminent, distinguished people today for this webinar. My name is Una McGurk, and I'm a barrister, senior counsel from Ireland. And I suppose I'm an idealist, a humanitarian at heart, and I've always engaged in the area of human rights as a lawyer. I became a lawyer because I wanted to help people and because I abhor injustice. That's the reason why I did it. I never worked in the area of commercial law or any of those areas where I might have made a lot of money. That was never my reason or my raison d'etre for becoming a lawyer. I'm a former national chairperson of the Irish Red Cross Society. So I'm very, at that time, which was over 20 years ago, I developed a great interest in the area of conflict resolution. And I have worked at, with my government. I've been involved in think tanks in Ireland, and I was involved in the Forum for Peace and Reconciliation, which was an initiative which ultimately led to the Good Friday Agreement some years later. So I'm generally passionate about peace, human rights, resolving social conflict and social resolution. So I'm very happy to be part of this peace initiative organization, and that's it for now. So right. I'm sure we'll talk later on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, Una. And Una's joined the World Intellectual Forum. She's helping from Ireland, so that's excellent news. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Murali, you're joining us, I believe, from Singapore. Do you unmute yourself and then introduce yourself? No, you have to unmute, Murali. We can't hear you.
Okay, I am Murali from Singapore.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm basically from South India, nearby Chennai. I migrated to Singapore for work in 1995 August. So almost for 25 years, I am now in Singapore as Singapore citizen, settled with my whole family here. I'm actually a diploma civil engineer, upgraded to safety, health, environment profession in the construction industry. So my involvement with this peace and humanitarian works was almost like unexpected. It happened very gradually, and at a point on Christmas Day of year 2008, I got this project concept to unite humanity. And the way I got this concept and the way I got the guidance to go and present it in 2015 Parliament of World Religions, all makes me believe that this is not my own imagination, but Almighty is using me as a tool to communicate this to humanity. So I have been doing my best, trying to contact the top level peoples around the world. Like Google CEO, Mr. Sundar Pichai, he once replied me in Instagram that he would support me when the right time comes. I don't know when he feels is the right time. When Mr. Barack Obama was the president, he also sent me a Gmail note appreciating this concept and wishing me well for this, wishing me good luck for this. There are a few other peoples who like this, including you. And at present, it is now keeping view with government agencies like in Dubai, in Philippines Tourism Board, Sri Lanka Tourism Board, Malaysia, in the Penang state, and lately in the Peru. Peru also like this project, but they say it is totally like a private project, so they don't want to do much about this.
Sure. Okay, so later on, Murali, you'll have a slot to speak and explain the project in detail. This is just a brief introduction. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you finally. We've corresponded a lot, and finally we get to meet, so that's good. Okay, we'll have a slot to hear the project in detail later. That's important. Okay, Arun, Dr. Sikarwar, it's your turn. Introduce yourself.
Okay. Good evening to everyone. I'm Arun Sikarwar. I'm an assistant professor in Diyarbakir University in the city of Taj Mahal, Agra right now. I had studied at Weill Cornell Medical College and Aarhus University, Copenhagen, Denmark. And now I teach neurobiology and cognitive science to UG and PG students. I don't have too much experience, but now my I want to have my science knowledge of neurobiology or cognitive science towards peace, prosperity, and conflict resolution. So I'm in process that how the benefits of brain biology can be harnessed to bring the peace in the world. How? Because there are two things. Brain is like a tangible thing, and mind runs in the brain as an intangible asset. So how this brain and mind can be controlled for the betterment and for positive outcomes. Can we have like our senses under control and towards the positive side? So I will be working to think in this direction. And I welcome all the comments from you all, and I will learn from you all the subject, and I will develop my interest in due course of time. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Arun. Arun spoke at our last month's meeting in September 30th, presented a PowerPoint presentation, hasn't had time to organize that for this month, but he will be hopefully saying a bit more about his work on the brain. It's very important. And okay, Katyayani Singh, it's your turn. Do introduce yourself. I think you're joining us from Bhopal, I believe. You have to unmute, madam. Yeah, that's it.
Yes. Good evening to all of you. My name is Katyayani Singh. I have done my PhD in political science, actually. So I am the topic of my thesis was actually non-killing and global peace, a study of emerging paradigms and prospects. So basically, it's I think very relevant as of the topic we are going to discuss is related to the Armenian and Azerbaijan conflict. So it's quite relevant to the concept of non-killing, because as the topic of non-killing stands for creation of a society wherein no threats to killing are there, no weapons are there that designed to kill, and no such situations are there which are conducive of killing. So we have been developing theories with this regard. I had developed a non-killing index in this regard that was of 2015 and 2016. Perhaps we might want to revise it looking into the present crisis. So that's what we have been working about. I teach as an assistant professor in political science at Bhopal University.
Well, welcome, Katyayani. Thank you for joining us. And hopefully we'll be hearing from you more in detail a bit later. So that's excellent. Kashala Mishra, do introduce yourself, and we'll be hearing from you again later, but this is just a brief introduction. Yeah, you must unmute.
Yeah. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you all. And I'm eager to listen to the deliberations of this meeting today. I am a nuclear scientist, worked in Bhabha Atomic Research Center at Mumbai, and have been quite associated with Mumbai University as professor. And I was also Vice Chancellor in Nehru Gram Bharati University, Allahabad. So now I'm a practicing educationist, academician, and scientist. I continue with my research, produced nearly 51 PhD students with me. Apart from my professional career, it is my independent thinking that somewhere I should contribute to society, and in particular to see how we can contribute to world peace and non-violence by our thinking. I am in the process of making some writings, but at the moment I have not any credential to my credit. Thomas has inspired me a lot, and I look forward to that I should be able to contribute to thinking, my intellectual process in the whole thing. So thank you.
Okay, welcome, Dr. Mishra. And we met last in December in 2019. Mishra was at the wonderful non-violence conference that Dr. S.L. Gandhi organized. So that's excellent. Okay, welcome. Ian Fry, you've joined us from Australia, sir. Welcome. I don't know what time of day it is there, but well done. And do introduce yourself, and there'll be a chance to speak again a bit later.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm sorry I'm running a little late. I'm getting later and later these days. Too many things to do. For the information of other members, I work with Thomas on the WIF Council. I work as a scholar of the University of Divinity in Melbourne. I work in interfaith relations a lot in Australia and overseas. I chair the Victorian Council of Churches Commission on Interfaith Relations, and clearly I have a very strong interest in the subjects which you'll be discussing tonight, and the problems of the need to reconstitute the United Nations to get a fairer deal for the non-Western world, and in particular the need for world faiths to get together to reassess the fundamentals around which we divide and which are pulling the world apart at the moment. Thank you.
Right, very important. Thank you, Ian. Okay, so we have Gila. Would you like to introduce yourself? Can you hear us, Gila? I hope so, in Israel. Gila Haron is involved with the World Intellectual Forum there.
Hi, Thomas. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Okay,
Do
good
introduce
afternoon.
yourself. Yeah, hello.
Hi, hello. I'm Gila Haron from Israel. I've known Thomas and his work for the last 20 years. I'm a spiritual educational teacher, and I work mainly with spiritual people. I was in my past in holistic psychology, and also worked in an information office with public relations and media consultant as well. And I'm a healer, and that's basically summarize up my profile, I would say.
And you're also involved with the diplomatic.
What I would like to emphasize that I work as a teacher of the book of Enoch, and that combines science with spirituality, which I find it very important to close this gap between spirituality and science. And I worked for many years with the late Professor Eric Friedman as well on this subject. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Gila. Gila's
pleasure.
Very old friend. We met at an international conference to create a network of wisdom schools around the planet in London.
I remember.
Yeah, and we're still trying to do that, Gila. So this is yet another attempt. So anyway, all the people who joined us, Nicola is. Do you want to say hello, Nicola? She's the media coordinator for the Institute. Make sure everything runs smoothly. So she's helping behind the scenes, and thank you again. And she's helped get the websites going and all that stuff.
Very important.
Right, so there are some others supposed to be joining us, but they probably got muddled up with the times. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kick off with an introduction, a sort of welcome, and a survey of what the type of range of things I hope we'll be discussing, not just on this meeting, but in the future meetings, because we're going to try and make this a monthly thing. We can't do this all in one 3-hour meeting, right? I mean, the world has got huge problems at the moment, as we all know, and where are the voice of the intellectuals? Where are the voice of the people that are trying to join all the dots? That's what we're trying to do in this meeting and in our monthly meetings. It's the least we can do. I mean, UNESCO ought to be doing this, but they've become a sort of bureaucratic body of experts that, you know, can't look outside their own box. And scientists ought to be doing this, but they've become specialists who just advance their careers within their specialist knowledge. Even philosophers who ought to be doing this are often they're the same. They just write learned papers, you know, in some little branch of knowledge. And so the World Intellectual Forum, therefore, has come into being to try and bring us all together, thinkers outside of the box, who might be interested in religious studies, philosophy, science, spirituality, mathematics, whatever. But we will apply our wisdom or law or human rights to the joined upness of the problems facing us, because it seems to me the problems are so many that we have to approach it in a holistic way. Okay, so the first thing that I put on the agenda here to run through is we have to somehow unthink the logic of warfare. Warfare is very, very primitive logically. I'm speaking as a philosopher. It's about either or. Either I win or you lose. Either my race or your race win, or my religion or your religion. This is such a simplistic logic. This was seen through by the great Buddhist philosopher Nagarjuna nearly 2,000 years ago. He said this ridiculous simplistic logic has to be replaced by neither this nor that. Neither you win nor I win. How about we both win? You know, it's as simple as that. And he wanted us to then go a step further and say, how about we look at the whole problem from a more enlightened perspective? We focus on enlightenment, and then guess what? The problem might be resolved as we increase our, you know, Buddhic nature, which is the Sanskrit word for intellect. So we're the World Intellectual Forum, we're the World Buddhistic, Buddhic Intellectual Forum. So that was Nagarjuna's point. And we need to have, therefore, a logic of peace, which is about both and. It's not Armenia or Azerbaijan, it's both and. So that's my first point. And that, you know, that's a really important job. Very few intellectuals even seem to articulate this. The media runs on division. If we're trying to actualize non-killing as a paradigm, we have to stop this logic. We have to challenge the logic of killing at its fundamentals. Okay, the second point I want to put on the agenda is what I call thinking through a cosmic, integral universalism that is inclusive of all cultures, religions, and nations. So we need to lay the paradigm for a way of thinking about mankind that we're all valuable, we're all precious. I don't care if you're Irish, Azeri, Armenian, Indian, you know, Jewish, Hindu, whatever. We are all unique individuals in an integral world system. That, as our dear friend Morales pointed out, you know, maybe the divine has got something to do with this. And people like Ken Wilber are trying to do this, thinking about an integral worldview that can link us all. So that's something else the World Intellectual Forum has pledged to do. We have to think this through. Thirdly on the agenda is laying the foundations of a global governance system. But not a sort of big brother top down, you know, here's the world parliament, let's all do what it says, but a holistic, sensitive, non-destructivist and peace-loving, like a world federation. And we have on our board several important global thinkers who have proposed world parliament systems, and Glenn T. Martin and Nicholas Hagar, he's issued a statement I'll be reading out later. And our chairman, Dr. Swaminathan, has written a book about global governance. He's not joined us as yet. Okay, so that's the third thing. The fourth thing is to explore what I call co-sovereignty in thinking through alternative paradigms to conflict. Instead of, you see a lot of the war battles that are going on, let's say Kashmir, and Ngorno Karabah, Ireland, it's all about disputes over sovereignty. And it was a French philosopher, Jean Baudin, who first talked about sovereignty. We need to rethink the concept. We have to have what I call co-sovereignty. So we have to have mutually interpenetrating spheres of sovereignty where, you know, the Armenians, the Azeris can maybe share sovereignty over Ngorno Karabah. I don't know how that will translate politically, but we have to think of a way. Perhaps dual citizenship. That's at least a co-sovereignty type of approach. Okay, so and also that leads to this idea of co-enlightenment. We have this very competitive approach, even in spirituality. You know, the education system is based on competition. My exam results are better than yours. I'll have a better career than yours. So I have to fight all the way to gain my prestige and status. Well, that system is outmoded. That's the old style system. We need to think through a cooperative education system where I help your education, you help mine. I call that co-enlightenment. And in spirituality, we have to rethink what is enlightenment. It's not like me becoming enlightened and then, you know, like it has to be a joint thing, co-enlightenment, right? And that actually is found in all the spiritual teachings. We just need to bring it back. You know, the Sikh religion was premised on that. A Sikh is simply a seeker of wisdom, a student. And the same with Jains, they're working for victory, for gnosis. And the same with Christians. We ought to be, you know, brothers and sisters advancing each other's enlightenment. So that again, that needs rethinking. Okay, then we're going to be looking at specific conflicts. So today we're going to look at Ngorno Karabah. Another time we might look at Yemen, which is a terrible war still going on. And it's all because of this failure to think of co-sovereignty, of solutions where Shias and Sunnis can share spheres of influence within one state. We're going to also, we have this problem of COVID. It's not gone away, it's got worse. Here in France, it's just gone into a much more severe lockdown. I can't go out shopping without a note telling the police where I'm going now. And where has this thing come from? You know, why haven't the scientists of the world issued a definitive statement? Why isn't the Royal Society? Why hasn't the Bioweapons Convention been invoked by the United Nations? Why is there this complete, like a collusion of ignorance? You know, I think the scientists and the medical specialists are in disarray. We have competing schools, theories. Where is truth in all this about the COVID? So that's a huge issue that we might get onto, some people might want to address. And it's affecting all our lives, you know. I still have this sneaky feeling this might have been a bioweapon that leaked from a laboratory, but then why hush it up? Don't we, the people, have the right to know? Okay, we're also going to be talking, I hope, about the Israel-Palestine problem. Again, that's a perfect example of you know, the schizophrenic logic of either or. Either Israel wins or Palestine wins. Why can't we explore we both win? What would that look like? What would co-sovereignty look like for an Israel-Palestine peace solution? The Trump-Netanyahu proposal was at least, I think, a step in the right direction. I've critiqued it, I've read it, I've given footnotes to it, and I've published my comments. At least it was something on the table. And he granted the rights for pilgrims to visit all of Palestine, all of Israel. If you're a Muslim pilgrim, you could go to the holy sites of Israel and vice versa. That was incredible. Religious freedom pilgrim pass, you know. For that alone, they deserve credit, in my opinion, from an interfaith perspective. But there are huge problems with it, and it needs, you know, reworking. So anyway, we'll hopefully talk about that. People mentioned the conflict between science and religion, and that is also on our agenda. We have a number of eminent scientists with us. We have some spiritual thinkers. Let's get together. Let's tackle this from an interdisciplinary perspective, but using rigor and scientific method, as well as intuition and spiritual method. Let's not elevate one methodology above another. What would it look like if science and religion shared co-sovereignty on the intellectual layout of the planet? It'd be very different. Another topic, and I'm glad we have a nuclear scientist with us, he might want to address this later, is we have to get the importance of ending nuclear weapons and ending the nuclear stockpiles on our planet back on the agenda. When I first began active in the peace movement in the 1980s, we were striving to get a denuclearization in Europe. We succeeded, and we got Russia or the Soviet Union and America to de-escalate their nuclear weapons. But they've still got massive stockpiles. They're still threatening. And now we've got nuclear weapon technology more spread out. We've got it in India, we've got it in China, we've got it in Israel, Pakistan, etc., etc. And even Saudi Arabia now says it wants nuclear bombs. I mean, can you imagine what the chaos? So we have to put back on the agenda and with the Trump presidency, they've de-signed some of the treaties, which is, I think, a retrograde step. So I would like to see back on the agenda a new global effort initiative to remove nuclear weapons from the planet as a whole. How can we be a civilized planet? How can we take ourselves seriously at all as long as we retain these shocking instruments of mass destruction? These can obliterate cities in an instant, like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And the after effect, the cancers, the radiation fallout, Dr. Mishra will tell us he knows is tragic. So we have to get rid of those as just before we can even consider ourselves at all civilized, in my opinion. Okay, so that's the first sort of series of things I'm putting on the agenda. I'll say at the end, I'll do a sort of roundup at the end of this discussions and add some of the other issues. Okay, so look, let's go first then to our first speaker, who is Gevork Manoukian, joining us from Armenia. And if you have any questions and stuff, put them in the chat. It's probably the best way to do it, and we'll fit them in. If you have particular points you want to raise and stuff. Okay, Gevork, tell us what's the situation now and what we can do to help.
Okay, thank you, Thomas. I remember when 2 years ago in 2017 in Jaipur, I had a presentation about peace, and my presentation title was Love as a Mortar for Universal Peace. And the main content of my presentation was that peace can be only universal. Real peace cannot be in several countries or continents. And peace is possible only through justice and global justice only. If we can have justice, global justice, then we can reach universal peace. And now I am still sure that this is true. And honestly, as a Christian man, my deep understanding is that universal peace we will have after the new age, when Christ comes. This is my opinion, and I'm so concerning the situation, current situation in my country. The situation is really so heavy. As you know, perhaps last month, September 27, Azerbaijan started wide-scale war against Artsakh. Artsakh is one of region of historical Armenia. Armenia was a big country during the centuries. And Artsakh was one of the region. But when Soviet Union was formed, Russia and Turkey agreed, and they divided Armenia. Some part was captured by Turkey, and main part of Armenia is captured now by Turkey, and included the holy for Christians mountain Ararat, biblical Ararat, is in Turkey. But it is every day we look at Ararat from Yerevan, from our capital. It's very beautiful mountain. Sometime maybe, I hope, I can invite you, Yerevan, Armenia, and you will look it. It's very nice mountain. Stalin gave another part of Armenia to Azerbaijan during in the beginning of formation of Soviet Union. Thomas wrote in his letter that during the Soviet period, Armenians and Azeris had only friendly feelings. You know, it's only it looked like friendly, but in reality, you know, in 1920s, in Nakhichevan region, 50% of population were Armenians. After 70 years, there were remained only 2 villages, Armenian villages. And currently now, no single Armenian is in Nakhichevan. And in Artsakh, in the beginning, in 1920, let's say, 95% population were Armenians. During the 70 years of Soviet Union, ethnic cleansing were, the policy was ethnic cleansing, and as a result, 75% remained Armenians, and Azeri ethnics increased. So the population raised this issue, and they raised the issue, expressed their willingness to join to Armenia as they were during the centuries. So this is a short history of this conflict. And now the situation I Azeris captured several regions along the Arax River, and they approached the fortress city Shushi. This is really a critical situation now, and it's very difficult to say what will happen tomorrow or in 2 hours. It's a very heavy situation. So every day, every minute, we look for news, what the situation is in the border. If you have questions, I'm ready to answer.
Well, thank you very much, Gevork. I would like to share just a couple of points and then a question or two to you, if you don't mind. I was taking part in a Zoom conference 2 days ago, organized by a Professor Tom Casier of the Brussels Kent University think tank on peace and conflict resolution. He's an expert on Russian foreign policy, and he organized a seminar about Nagorno Karabakh. The other speakers were Christine Bacher, who's a Norwegian peace scholar at the University College in London. And she spoke very well. And also Neil Melvin, who was from SIPRI, which is the Stockholm Institute of Peace Research. And finally, a political scientist, Professor Eki Berg from Estonia. So I was listening to these 3 experts speaking about what you've just talked about. They gave some very interesting background. I did invite one of them to join us today, but obviously it was very short notice. One of the things I learned from that seminar that I thought was shocking, well, several things, but one of them is that it's an asymmetrical, unfair battle. The Armenians are using, on the whole, fairly old-style military equipment, Soviet-era stuff for defense. They were attacked. There's no doubt about that. The Azeris, on the other hand, have much more wealth. They're an oil-rich region. They've bought highly sophisticated weapons, including drones, very precise missiles, and therefore they can win this war. Absolutely no doubt, because they have the equipment, they have the sophisticated stuff. Professor Eki was warning, look, the Azeris can overrun Nagorno Karabakh, like it's a matter of weeks, probably. You know, they could win this because they have the equipment. And then he was warning, look, what's going to happen then? Are they going to do ethnic cleansing? Are they going to, like, you know, last time there was a war over this region, there were actually massacres and ethnic cleansings going on. And that the media never discusses this. I know because I ran seminars in Parliament on conflict resolution. This is a document that was produced way back in the 90s during that cycle of violence by Baroness Cox, who was a conservative lady who was also a Christian peace activist. And she was concerned about this because nobody was talking up for the Armenians. Anyway, this ethnic cleansing in progress, Nagorno-Karabakh document, is horrific reading. I was looking at it before today. And you know, there were, okay, you know, rapes as a political weapon against the Armenian women in Nagorno-Karabakh, wherever the Azeri Turks managed to seize power. My concern, as it is Professor Eki's, is who's going to stop them doing it again? Where is the international community? We cannot afford, on our moral conscience, to let these poor Armenians be overrun, massacred, pogromed, raped, etc. You know, so we had discussions. I said, well, why isn't the United Nations doing anything? Why aren't they intervening? Why aren't they sending in a peacekeeping force? You know, why isn't the European Union intervening? Again, sending in a peacekeeping force. Why isn't there a union mediation service like I've been proposing since 2008? I also want to raise another issue, the geopolitics of this. We have our speaker here from Israel. Be interesting her comment on this, because the Israeli government are selling the Azeris a lot of this equipment. Highly sophisticated weaponry is coming from Israel. For God's sake, Israel, you know, shouldn't be doing this. They know what genocide is like. They know what massacre is like. They're giving weapons into the hands of the Azeris. So why are they doing it? Okay, I discovered why, right? In this seminar that I listened to. Eki and Neil, who's a strategic studies expert at SIPRI, explained. And it all goes back to Israel's loathing and hatred and ignorance about Iran and Iranian culture. Israel, for reasons that I find psychopathic, has the inability to make peace deals with Iran. Can't even conceive of it. So anyone who's an enemy potentially, or can help them in their battle against Iran, is going to be a friend. They have done a secret deal with the Azeri people behind the scenes. If Israel ever wants to wage a war against Iran, they've got overflight deal with Azerbaijan. So their planes can bomb Iran by going in over Azerbaijan. Just think about that for a second, right? That's the geopolitics of this. So although they're, you know, on the whole wary of Islamic powerful countries, their hatred of Iran is so big and pathological that they're prepared to see Armenia sacrificed, slaughtered, massacred in the Ngorno Karabah, so they get the right to go and drop bombs on Iran. That's how they're thinking. And I find that morally unacceptable. As a philosopher of peace, I don't want to live in a world where people who think like that are making decisions. I don't think any person, you know, that's like a Hitler way of thinking, like, well, we'll slaughter these Jews and we'll make Germany nice and free of Jews, you know. That's evil. That's evil. So to say as a state, well, we'll sell the Azeris all these secret weapons and drones and, you know, high precision missiles so that we can then go and attack Iran. Again, I find it unacceptable morally. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Those are two things I learned in the seminar. And I wanted to ask you a question. So in this one-sided battle where the Azeris are the superpower effectively of the region and you guys are on the defensive, who is actually doing the fighting in Ngorno Karabah? Is it like a home army that Ngorno Karabah has created, or are the Armenian armed forces involved in some way? Can they go and volunteer? Do you have Armenians going to volunteer, or is it all just local people? So that's the question to you, Gevork.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for sharing the information about the other webinar. You know, many Armenians currently think that all countries have their own interests and nobody will fight for us. Nobody will protect us, and we ourselves many times could solve our problems alone. And our aim and our plan mainly is to solve our problem ourselves. Of course, we are not as rich as Azeris. They have oil, and Turkey supports them. But however, we think that we will win, because justice justice cannot die, and we will succeed. I hope, and we hope that God will not allow unfairness. However, to your question, in Nagorno Karabah, the local population and people from Armenia, as Armenia officially is a guarantee for security of Artsakh, and legally Armenia openly, legally protects and supports Artsakh. Also, there are some Armenians from other countries, from diaspora. I'm sorry, Angela, yes, sorry. Some Armenians from different countries come to help our people, motherland, and those who have citizenship of Armenia, those are allowed to be involved, but others there are not, and there is a legal problem to allow them. But I think that in this situation, our parliament should accept a law that could allow all Armenians from diaspora to be involved to protect their motherland, their country, because Armenia is not only ours, but there are 10 million of Armenians in all over the world. So they, I think that they should have opportunity to help, to support.
So thank you for that question, answer. I've got one more question, and then if anyone's got questions for Gevork, do please maybe put them in the chat, and then I'll bring you on. I noted your very moving comment about Christ and Christianity and the New Age, a sort of metaphysical solution to the conflict, right? I mean, I, as a historian, know that Armenia was the first country in world history to become Christian. In those days, it was much bigger. And long before the Roman Empire or Britain or Ireland became Christian, Armenia was a Christian country. And so I think that Christians around the world have a duty to protect this little sacred land and ensure that it is safe and intact, you know, at the time of the New Age, as Gevork puts it. On that question, the metaphysics of peace, the question of how we can build a world of peace. If we look at it from a higher systemic perspective, the Muslims of Azerbaijan and elsewhere, Turkey, Pakistan, even Afghanistan, are all now on the Azeri side. There's this sort of herd thinking. Muslims get together, attack the Christians. Because France and President Macron have been making reasonably pro-Armenian noises, not like we're going to go and fight on their side, but we're going to not let them be massacred. So now Muslim terrorists have been unleashed on France, and they're beheading people in churches. And apparently the Turkish president has said, you know, the French should all be slaughtered. I don't know. The rhetoric is heating up here, right? France, you know, is although secular, it still has deep Christian roots, obviously. So as a peace scholar, philosopher, I'm trying to build a higher order peace between Islam and Christianity. The commentary I've done on the Quran is intended that we can get over this theological war, because you see, in my reading, political wars come from a theological, a spiritual perspective, and I'm desperate that the Muslim leaders of Azerbaijan, the Christian leaders of Armenia, should come together. The politicians aren't going to make peace. They're the arms dealers. Are you in touch with anyone in the Armenian church, Gevork? You mentioned you're a member of the Armenian church. Are they reaching out to any Muslim imams in Azerbaijan to make peace talks about just discussing God? You know, let's have the God talk. Like, can't we have a both and? Can't Muhammad be a messenger and Christ was the Son of God? Can't we make a peace deal where we agree each other's narratives? And isn't that happening? You know, it should have been happening all this time. Tell us what you know about peace work between Muslim imams and Christian clergy in Armenia.
This is very interesting question. Of course, in this situation, it's nonsense to talk about such contacts, but you know, I am a member of we can say spiritual or religion parliament that exists in Armenia. In this parliament, a kind of parliament, sorry, it calls representative assembly, representative assembly of the Holy Church of Armenia. I am member of this assembly. And I know that periodically Armenian Catholicos and spiritual leader of Azerbaijan, they periodically met and with the mediation of Russian Patriarch Kirill. And they discussed several issues. They tried to find solutions. Of course, they could not solve political real issues of peace, for peace, but they tried. They met several times and tried to support the peace process.
Okay.
This is
thank you.
Situation.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I wish they were doing more, and I don't agree with your comment that in this situation it's not appropriate. I think what we need is a standing force, a standing parliament for peace between religions, and it's precisely in this kind of situation that they should get most active, in my opinion. You know, but anyway, Una, you have a question for Gevork, I believe. So unmute and go for it.
Oh yes, thanks, Thomas, and thank you very much for that, Gevork. That was really interesting to hear. I have, you know, great sympathy and empathy for the Armenian people. You've been through so much, and I'm really so sorry to hear about this latest, you know, situation in Ngorno Karabah. I just wanted to say that you said something very profound that I agree with, which is that you cannot have universal peace without universal justice. And I agree with that because we are all one. As the brotherhood of man, no matter what religion we are, we're all deeply connected on a spiritual level, whatever our religion. And I think that's true. It's because of our connectedness. We can't say we can have peace in one. Yes, it's great if we have peace in one place, but we have a duty, I believe, as being members of the brotherhood of mankind, to ensure that there's peace everywhere else as well. So I agree with you on that. I just wanted to ask you, and I come from a country where I was born a Catholic, so it's a Christian country, but I have a great interest in all religions and all faiths, and I think they're all the same at their core. But you said something interesting about how you feel that there won't really be peace until we have the second coming of Christ, which is, you know, a very common theme amongst Christians, and especially in the current time where the world is going through so much, where many people feel that things won't be resolved unless and until Jesus comes back again, or Christ comes back again to save us. So I'm just exploring something with regard to that, which I wanted to share with you, which you may or may not find interesting, which is the concept that the second coming of Christ is not a literal second coming, but that in fact it involves a connection with the Christos, or the Christ within, the sort of the enlightened aspect of ourselves within, and that this time round, whilst there may have been a savior or a Messiah or a prophet, you know, at one point who came to save the world, that this time round it's up to each one of us to do that, and to do it internally. And it's to connect with, you know, that Christ within us, and that is what is going to lead us out of this current debacle we're in. Because personally, I think that there needs to be a spiritual reformation and a transformation, which is going to bring about enlightenment in the world and take us out of this current situation we're in with regard to COVID. But that's a story for another day. And finally, I just wanted to say, I wanted to ask you, and forgive me that I haven't had an opportunity to do any research on this recent invasion, you know, of Ngorno Karabah by Azerbaijan, but I've been listening intently to what you and Thomas have said, and it's really, I'm so sad to hear that. And it's, you know, I abhor any kind of violence. But I'm wondering, I just wanted to ask you, and this is a very simple question, is the reason for the invasion, is it purely expansionist, or is there an aspect of it which is seeking a natural resource like water, for example? Is that an aspect of this? Thank you. Thanks for your patience. Thank you, Thomas.
Right, thanks, Una. Gevork, go for it. You'll have to unmute, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Una. Thank you very much for very interesting question. Personally, I believe that he will come again. Personally, I believe. And I agree with you that Christ can come just now and today in each of us. And this is eternal thing, our spiritual situation of within each of us. I agree with this, and I don't think that we will just wait for his coming, but we will, of course, act and pray and act and support, help each other and love each other, what is much more important.
And on the issue of resources, Gevork, quickly, why have they attacked?
Sorry?
Her second question was, is there anything in Artsakh valuable that the Azeris want?
Yes, the question, you know, the reason is that Azerbaijan considers that Armenians occupied their territories, so-called 7 regions that Armenians occupied. But as I said, Stalin, during the formation of Soviet period, gave these territories to Azerbaijan, and Armenian forces that Armenia lost 9 of 10 part of his lands, and it succeeded to liberate a very small part. And now de jure, these territories and Nagorno Karabah belong to Azerbaijan, de jure. And therefore, they have support of international law, and they say Armenia is occupied our territories, and so we are entitled to demand these territories back. So this is the reason they want to occupy. But one more thing, they want these territories without Armenian population. And what, you know, what they do there, how they relate with population. They have beheaded several Armenian soldiers, even killed soldiers. And it's they are bombing hospitals, even maternal hospital, churches, cultural objects. So it's obvious that they need only territory, not the population. And we cannot forget the genocide they have committed in 1988 in several cities of Azerbaijan, in Ganja, in Baku, in Sumgait, in several cities. They killed women, children, all Armenians, just for that they were Armenians. So that's the situation.
Thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's a tragic. One comment I have, and then I want to ask a question of Gila, actually. I think she's joined us. When I was involved with the Irish-British peace process, we had a professor who organized a conference called the Reconciliation of Memories at King's College London, Frank Wright, who, in peace theory, we can't make peace between conflicting cultures by avoiding history, by avoiding the past. Politicians like to only draw on selectively on past narratives, which then increases their own nationalism and their own rhetoric. But scholars, as peace scholars, we have to look at the past holistically. I would like there to be historical commissions working with Armenian scholars and Azeri scholars and Russians and Turks, reformulating the narrative of the history of the region so that we can escape from this constant dialectic of struggle and conflict and good versus evil, and construct what I said at the beginning, an integrative, universalistic narrative that everybody's story is valuable, everybody's story is true, but nobody's story is the only story. You know, we have to find a way of enabling everybody's stories to be told. I am sure that if most Azeris knew the horrors that the Armenian people have been through, they would not let their army do this. It's because the media in these countries is restrictive and selective. I mean, I wanted to ask Gila, because when I came to visit you in Israel, Gila, we met some Armenians. There's quite a few Armenians living in Israel who've taken refuge there and are happy living there, because, you know, they know the horrors of their genocide that happened to them. And it was with the breakdown of the Ottomans that Israel came into being. So I'm shocked that Israel would be now supporting the Azeris. It's like, who's captured the Israeli conscience? Tell us what's going on in the media. Are you seeing reports in Israel about this conflict? And how is it being spun? Tell us about that. And did you know what I said about the, you know, the weapons? Is this known in Israel?
Yes, I knew, and I was very happy that you haven't mentioned it until now, because I personally, I don't like it, but you know, first of all, I would like Gevork, our friend from Armenia, to know that the Israeli people sympathize with the Armenian people very much. And politics is something else, but they have our own sympathy, I can tell you fully. And it was, yes, the subject was some time ago. It was covered on the media and it was presented. The facts and what is happening, and the fact that we are also selling them the drones. And well, I must comment that you know, Iran is not just how shall I put it, some imaginary fear of Netanyahu or other politicians. Iran, it's very real. And she kept saying, I mean, our leaders kept saying that they want to finish up with Israel. And we can't afford ourselves not to take it seriously. So unfortunately, life makes it the way that, you know, we have to have allies. And this is what is happening. I'm not happy about it, but, and I would have loved it to be different, in a different situation. And what I would like to stress is that what Gevork said at the beginning, that we won't have peace in the world if we won't have it for everybody, and if it won't be justice for everybody. And if intellectuals can do something, is to work on that, on elevating the awareness of all humanity, basically, to justice, in the way that the other friend from Ireland talked about. I mean, I personally, I don't care what is going to be the name of the Messiah, you know? As long as we build in ourselves, each one has the responsibility to build in himself and around himself this energy of love and understanding and justice. So if everybody will take care of that, that will influence globally, and it influences the deeds of the politicians as well. So that's what I have to comment on the subject, you know.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully we'll find a slot for you later to tell us more about your work in spirituality and the Enochian tradition. Yeah. relation to Armenia, thank you. Would our friend Kachiani like to speak? Are you still there? Because you're involved with non-killing. I'd like to ask Kachiani if this, I mean, this is a practical, concrete example of people killing each other. What can your Center for Non-Killing do? I mean, this was a question I asked you previously, is like, there's the theory of non-killing, and you can study, you know, the theory, but how do we then get that transmitted into the field when they're actually killing each other? Do the people in Hawaii do this? I mean, does anyone in the non-killing field actually have a, like, let's go and stop the killing, you know, a practical work? That's my question to you, Kachiani.
With regard to the practical work, I think there are some, there is one person, Christophe Babi. He is representing the CGNK at the UN, the Geneva branch. So he talks about, he presents the case of all the people or all the countries wherein such practices of killing takes place. So he is involved with mediation. That is how to solve the conflict by mediating by a peaceful means or through reconciliation process. So it's about his activities I am aware. And other than that, I think we all have been working theoretically on as to who are the people who are responsible and for perpetuating the killings. What kind of theories are responsible for the killings that takes place? Like, for example, you mentioned that why you gave the explanation as to why Israel has come out to help Azerbaijan. They have their own national interest attached to it. So
Yeah.
I believe that's because the concept of realism is largely being followed till date in politics, and no other concept has come up which can overpower it, because for every nation, national interest is the first thing that they all want to serve. International peace or humanitarian measures or justice, I think, comes much later than that. And that's precisely the problem that is responsible for the killings, whether it is in Armenia, whether it is in Kashmir, whether it is in Pakistan, or in any place of the world. So I don't know how reconciliation or mediation is going to help, because sometimes what happens is there are unfair actions, unfair deeds done, which the parties justify, and they whenever you try to talk them out of it, they somehow still manage to justify their action. So in a situation like this, wherein the massacre is taking place, wherein they are actually committing genocide, doing ethnic cleansing, so I think the only way to stop them is to send in some peacekeeping force. But for that, the international community needs to stand together, like the Muslim communities or the Islamic communities, Islamic nations have come together in support of Azerbaijan to attack Armenia. Likewise, if the whole world comes together that we do not want this war and you need to stop this. So I think then that collective solidarity would probably help in solving such crisis.
That's very well said. Thank you, Kachiani. So I hope you're going to be challenging realism as the only geopolitical theory available. And also, I'd like to ask India that your voice is important at the United Nations. You should be pressurizing your government to be calling for an international peace process, dialogue, offering to host talks in Delhi, this kind of thing. You know, is Mahendra Jain there? because he's been joining us from India, from the Jain community. And we talk about sending in a peace force from the UN. As some of you know, I've worked with the Jains and Dr. S.L. Gandhi for many years. What I would like to see is that we send in like non-violence trainers. If we could send in a team of Jain experts in mediation, for instance, or people that have been trained in ahimsa, let's say active non-violence experts, to then go and talk to both sides. That's never really been tried, but I know that Acharya Tulsi, who founded the Jain traditions I've been involved with, he went personally into the Punjab to teach non-violence when the Sikhs and the Hindus were attacking each other. Is Mahendra Jain there? Could you comment on this? Tell us about your work with the Jain non-violence traditions.
Thank you.
Greetings.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Daffern. I'm here from India, and I would like to say that in our Jain tradition, we always believe in reconciliation with friends, treating everybody as a friend. And so, all the conflicts should be resolved with our mediation, with the peace, and with talk. And I can't say much more about this since I have not studied about Azerbaijan and this Armenian war, but I can say that it is not quite possible that if our big countries would like to resolve this conflict, it could be done. I wish that our world goes to peace and happiness through our friendship motto, which our Jain tradition wants to follow by everyone. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Mahendra. That's excellent. I wonder if our friend Helena Lorentzen is there from Monaco. If Helena could comment, because she's just got back from a conference in Turkey, and Turkey is one of the players here. But
yeah,
Helena's, greetings, active with meditation in raising the consciousness of people. So tell us what you were doing in Turkey, Helena, and did you talk about this stuff? Yeah.
I was teaching, it was like 146 young people between 18 and 35 from 60 different countries who was at a peace conference. And it was very, very inspiring. And they all were discussing their projects. And I was teaching them meditation to look inside. And it was, for example, a transgender woman from Pakistan who was fighting for transgender rights in Pakistan. I find that very, very inspiring. To be yourself and fight, that you have to fight to be yourself. And yeah, I'm shocked what happened in Nice because that's only 20 minutes from where I live. And I'm even more shocked when I hear some of my friends here talking about how the problems is the immigrants or the refugees and blaming it on that. And I feel it's taking the world a bit in the wrong way. Instead of seeing that it's one bad person coming from Tunisia, you know, it was one single person doing an act, they're making it that is all people doing bad acts coming from that country or that religion. So, yeah.
When you were in Turkey, was there anyone from Armenia on the conference? Did you meet? Did that topic come up at all?
I know the organization sent like a peace letter like you did, but it didn't come up.
And there was nobody from Armenia in the parliament of?
Not that I spoke with, no.
Okay. And just to sum up, I mean, the Jains believe, we heard from Mahendra Jain, that you can resolve conflicts through meditation, that meditation takes you to a higher place of enlightenment, which enables you to see both sides of a dispute. As a practicing meditator, a teacher of meditation yourself, would you agree with that? How can meditation help in conflicts? If we had a UN meditation team could go into these conflict zones, would that help?
Yes, sir.
Of course.
Yeah. And how does it help, Helena? Have you thought that through, like intellectually?
Yeah, because when you meditate, you start observing yourself and you see your own behavior and all your own actions and what happens when you do certain behavior and how your thoughts brings you into problems. You know, it's like cause and effect. And I wrote this paper for this conference I was speaking at in Jakarta for peace about meditation. And I asked the people, you know, I did like a questionnaire, and what has happened after you started meditating? And a lot of people said they have become more ethical and moral. So if you can become more ethical and moral, of course, then how can you fight other people? How can you kill other people? How can you harm other people? How can you do evil to other people, you know? You're coming from your heart. You're changing your perspective.
Okay. Well, I hope, and I think you're going to be doing a degree with the UN Training Institute. So maybe over the next few years, you can help set up a UN meditation force, which would go inside alongside the peacekeeping force and actually attack the causal level of these conflicts. Because just sending a UN peacekeeping force with guns, it's not the solution. We need a UN meditation team to actually attack the causal thing. So I hope you'll organize that.
But I think it's important maybe to be very careful not to link it with any religion or organization, but just keep it to very specific, simple techniques to observe yourself and tame your own mind, so people don't get opposed to it. Because unfortunately, people often when they hear the word meditation or it comes from Buddhism or something like that, they judge it without knowing what it's really about.
Sure, and certainly if the UN were involved, they'd have to make sure it was universal. It was not just about one religion. But you see, there are meditation and spiritualities in all religions. So I think every religion would support that project, but so would humanists, and so would, I don't know if people know this, but as a philosopher, a classical philosopher, I've discovered they used to do meditation practice in ancient Athens and in the ancient wisdom schools of Greece, Plato and co. I mean, there is a meditation tradition in the European secular philosophical tradition as well. Okay, so look, I think we need to, let's move on. Thank you for this very interesting discussion. And thanks, Helena, for the point, and Gila and everyone.